And our next guest is a pre-recorded one because he is in Chicago and it's, the middle of the night there. So we did this a bit earlier. Our next speaker is PJ Utsi, co-founder and chief creative officer at Vaimo. He's going to tell us about successful strategies and tactics in an accelerated world of digital commerce. And our guest after PJ Utsi will be a pre-recording as well, because then we're going to Shanghai, where we have the time difference thing at hand as well. But first, PJ Utsi, Vaimo. The company name, being a Swede, you might know that in Finnish, Vaimo with a single V means wife. Is this a coincidence?
Yeah, we get this a lot since we opened up in Finland. And the story behind Vaimo is not that. It's very close, though. The word comes from the Sami language, which is obviously related to the Finnish language. I am a Sami. I grew up in the northern parts of Sweden, and the Sami language is actually my mother tongue. I still speak Sami with my kids and my family. And when we created Vaimo, we looked for a name that could symbolize both how we work and what we are, what role we play. And for us, if you would put Vaimo and the things we design and build in a system diagram, we would be at the center, at the core. And we think that the e-commerce platform is central, the main engine, if you will, that everything connects into. And in the Sami language, Vaimo means heart, Vaimo. So heart is the true meaning, and that's where the name comes from.
PJ, USA and smart commerce, that's a good match, of course. How do you see the big e-commerce trend in 2021 shape up?
Oh, man. Yeah, the US is pretty fascinating. It's also very weird and scary, at least it used to be. But if we only look at US from an e-commerce point of view, there's a lot going on here. And the first thing is to understand how big it is. It's huge. It's also very fragmented and differentiated. Some companies are outstanding leaders in innovation, and some are still stuck in the 1990s. It's pretty interesting, but it's a cool place to be in if you want to look closely at the bleeding edge of digital commerce, especially over the last 12 months. And I'll bring a few examples up in my presentation, but if I had to summarize what's going on, it's not so much about new things. Most of it is already there. It feels like it's just more of everything, faster and better than before. So smoother payments, faster deliveries, more personalization, smarter browsing, better search, and so on. So I think it's just more of everything. But the big change or the big trend or the big shift I see is actually on the customer side. That's the big news. A lot of people are now rushing to digital. There's been no other option. That's the only choice. And there's a lot of new people that are coming to digital. And with that, the adoption of digital is just skyrocketing. And with adoption comes customer expectations. And that puts a ton of pressure on us and everybody trying to meet the demands here to keep up. So I'd say the big thing is the change in customer behavior and adoption and expectations. That's the big change that I'm thinking about. All right. So let's talk about this. Successful strategies and tactics in an accelerated world of digital commerce. Now, that's a mouthful. And the key part here is accelerated world of digital, because that is one of the things that has happened during this pandemic. We've plunged into the future really, really quickly. And there are a number of reports with different metrics trying to describe this. And this is a popular one. 10 years of growth in 3 months. And this is the US e-commerce penetration according to Forrester and others. And you can debate if we jumped 5 years or 15 years forward and how you would even measure it. But I think we can all agree that a lot of things have changed dramatically. At Vaimo, we have this playbook of successful tactics that we always refer to in our work with clients. And a lot of it is based in customer behavior. And this is where we've seen a lot of changes. Today, I'll talk about 3 areas where I think the migration to digital is extra relevant for us in the commerce space. We'll look at the before and after, lessons learned, and who already mastered this class. And let's start here with a meeting. It's what we're doing right now. We're in a virtual conference over video. And it's something that we've become very used to by now. Many of us have been more or less living in Zoom, Hangouts, Teams, and whatnot over the last 10 or 12 months. But is it really virtual? Is this not a real conference or a real meeting? Why do we call it virtual? Is it only physical meetings that count, that are real? Can't both be real? To me, the more interesting question is which meeting is better? Which format works better? And these 2 pictures represent a side-by-side example. The left side is before and the right side is after. Before the pandemic, this is how my typical meeting notes and scribbles would look like from a normal in-person meeting or conference. These days, however, I've shifted tools and even the way I conduct meetings. And I know I'm not alone. Meetings have changed. We've come to realize a couple of things that we didn't really think about before. For example, do we really need to meet in person? Is that the most effective way of collaborating? We've come to question this because we've seen that digital meetings mean zero travel, saving money, and most importantly, time. We waste a lot less time between meetings, meaning we can get more time to do work or more free time. We don't have to fight over conference rooms, and we're minimizing our carbon footprint, and we don't even have to worry that much about pants and shoes anymore. The key thing here is that more and more people are realizing that digital can be as real or as good or even better than physical. And my scribbles here are just one example. These days, I don't take notes anymore. We use an application called Grain that is automatically transcribing everything that is said in the meeting, complete with screen recording, timestamps, and live collaborative notes and highlights. And to me, as many of us, meetings are important. That's where a lot of knowledge transfer happens, where key insights and important decisions are made. And a crucial artifact from these meetings are the minutes, the action points, and random scribbles. And with digital tools like Grain, we get at least half of them automatically. And this is a game changer. And I know that when we will get back to a normal meeting situation again, I will make sure to fire up Zoom and Grain to make sure to record it and automatically get the minutes. It's a pretty big insight. And I think this is one of the things that is going to drive behavioral change. And I think this is the first lesson, that digital is very real, it works well, and it will become default in many cases. And as we start to realize this for meetings, we'll bring these expectations to other fields, such as shopping. Now, some takeaways that I think are going to be increasingly important for a successful customer experience. Just start with video. We've seen how much more efficient a Zoom call can be than typing away in Slack or talking on the phone. And on e-commerce websites, we'll soon look at live chat in the same way. Live chat will quickly become antiquated, and the expectation for live video support increases. There are a lot of new companies and services popping up that offer exactly this, live video chat. Another one being voice to text. We've seen how easy it is to generate text without a keyboard. This is not new. Many sites and apps have had voice search for years, but the pandemic has accelerated adoption for voice. And I think this is going to be used a lot more going forward. Here to the left is an example, Sephora, just one of the apps out there where voice search is front and center. There's a reason for that, and it works really well. Then there's collaborative authoring and editing. We've all seen how incredibly efficient it can be to work in the same document for meeting minutes. So why can't we do the same thing for, say, shopping lists? Or the realization that in a digital world, everything is easily logged. And it probably already is, which can be scary, but it can be used for good too. And the acceptance will grow. We are all okay with Zoom meetings being recorded. Soon, we will expect that a shopping site records everything we do and have ever done and uses that data to help me shop. Okay. Change 2, area 2. The next change that the pandemic has brought upon us, working out. I think we all know how it looked like before. So here are 2 examples of how it can look now.
The left represents a common situation in traditional in-person gyms. We're trying to do it the normal way, but we have to add procedures to keep it safe. Wiping down equipment, wearing masks, and staying separated. No more partner workouts. The right is an example of what a digital gym can look like if you can shell out $3,000 for the smartest home gym in the world. This is Tonal, one of the more advanced players in the fitness at home industry. They use electromagnetic technology to generate resistance. And this is, of course, patented. And of course, there's a ton of software that's using AI and machine learning and everything else you would expect from a Silicon Valley fitness company. And we might laugh at this and think it's all just toys for the wealthy, but I think that Tonal is another beautiful example of an application that can show us that digital can in fact be a lot better than the traditional physical version. Tonal has electronic resistant that not only replaces weights, it can adjust resistance on the fly. It has a special spotter mode if you want to do bench press to failure, for example. And of course, it registers everything you do, tracking your progress with an AI that optimizes your training schedule. And yes, of course, it has cameras and screens for personal training sessions and almost everything else you can think of. It is a pretty cool piece of technology. And I'm using Tonal here as an example of behavioral change. During the last year, we've come to realize the increasing role of digital in all aspects of our lives, fitness being one. And it's not new either. We've had fitness trackers on our wrists, bikes, and log workouts and spreadsheets and apps for years, but it's all been something that we've added on to the workout to better quantify it. Before, if the batteries run out, we could still finish the run. Now, if the Wi-Fi drops, we're thrown out of our Zoom class. And this is maybe not true for everything, but our dependency on digital is bigger, and we also see that it can be pretty nice, for example, to work out at home. So what are the lessons here? For this, I've chosen to look at a couple of companies who have completely crushed it. They mastered the class of connected fitness. As the customers are rushing to digital, the companies who've managed to connect and integrate their offering, product or service, with digital channels, they're the ones who are coming out as winners. And this is just a list of a few of the big and most successful ones in this field. And it's pretty obvious that everyone is already here and they all just keep pushing ahead. Take Apple, for example. They launched fitness for real now in December with studio classes, personalized workouts, family sharing, music, everything super glossy, and everything built around the hardware and ecosystem everyone already has. It's a huge investment and a big deal. And Apple already owns the rails here and has a general high standing in the data privacy side, which is very important when it comes to tracking data. The customers will come for sure. Google acquired Fitbit 2 weeks ago, and they now also have a gadget to collect health and fitness data. YouTube already knows exactly which workouts you're watching, and Amazon, they have their Halo wristband that does 3D body scans and tracks your sleep, and it's hooked up to everything that Amazon already knows about you. And it might be unfair to compare ourselves with the giants of the world here, but I think they're doing something that the rest of us can learn and benefit from. They're bridging the gap between physical and digital and increasing the acceptance of connecting with the company in fields outside of what we're used to. Connected fitness is nothing new, but the last year has shown us how incredibly powerful it can be and how the ones who are good at it have broken away from the rest. Nike is growing like crazy. Their e-com business saw an 82% spike in the last quarter, and they're on their way to have digital sales represent 50% of total revenue, just a few years away. This is absolutely stunning. And it's not just that their stores have been struggling and that their CEO is an e-com veteran. Nike is also a very popular training app, and their shopping app is always in the top 10 to 15 spots in the App Store. This gives them an incredibly good idea about who the customers are, what they do, what they like, and what they don't like. Lululemon is another one. They acquired Mirror for $500 million in 2020, and they did this in an attempt to boost loyalty and create new revenue streams. And they're trying to position themselves as this omni-experience lifestyle brand. And Peloton, which you all know and heard about, has gone from an 8 billion valuation in January of 2020 to 46 billion valuation a year later. The US president even has one in the White House, and he can order new spinning apparel by tapping the screen during class. Now, there are a lot of shiny objects and on impressive growth trajectories here, and Tonal being one of them. And they're all examples of what will happen when digital integration is done right. And I think the lesson for the rest of us here is to think about how we can use digital to extend the relationship with customers. They're going to be absolutely fine with it. Okay, so the last change. And this one is maybe closest to our own business and what we do for a living, the store. And to the left here is a photo of how a traditional store typically looks like in the days of the pandemic. And this is a real photo that I took when I was going to visit one of my favorite stores in Chicago, REI. It's the leader in the outdoor sporting goods and camping gear category. They have 165 stores. It's a $3 billion US company. And the pandemic forces them to run at limited capacity, which often means that you have to stand in line for 45 minutes to get in. And people do. Some shopping is still very tactile and has to happen in person, but as you stand there, you start to think, really? Is this really necessary? And to the right is obviously Amazon, the everything store. This is a real start page you gave me the other day. Amazon knows me. It knows that my Wi-Fi is struggling. It knows I have 2 kids of school age. They have Amazon family accounts. It knows what Wi-Fi router I have because I bought it from Amazon 2 years ago. So it doesn't really have to tap my Alexa mic to know how much I've been screaming and cursing every time my Wi-Fi drops when everyone in the house is trying to do Zoom calls at the same time. It also knows what coffee I drink and when it's time to get more. It also knows that I was looking for snowboard binding parts, and that's actually why I head over to REI. Now, Amazon is scary good, especially here in the US, if you're a Prime member and if you live 15 minutes from an Amazon hub, like I do. For a lot of everyday items, I can get free same-day delivery, and for Amazon Fresh, I can get my stuff delivered in 2 hours. And this is true. I've timed this. I can order coffee, toilet paper, milk, eggs, and ripe avocados and have them on my doorstep in shorter time than it takes me to drive to REI, 20 minutes, stand in line, 45 minutes, navigate the store and realize that I should have gotten the parts from Amazon to begin with, 30 minutes, and drive back home. The traditional store is not particularly good compared to digital leaders. And during the pandemic, I suspect that many are even starting to question which store is the real one? Why do physical stores even exist when they are worse at almost everything? I think it's a good question. So the last set of lessons, what can we learn here? And to start with, the subtitle of this slide is the exact same as the one for the meeting. These are new thoughts in the heads of more and more customers. Digital is real. It's often better. We're starting to abandon the traditional physical channels. And I think this is the first takeaway. When we say go to the store, we mean look at a screen. Unless, of course, Siri or Alexa is already listening. But this might not be something new to think digital first, but for many of us, the last year has been digital only. And it can be pretty useful to try and completely remove the physical store in our commerce strategy sessions. Try that next time. See how the conversation changes. Is this the end of omni-channel? Maybe it is. And then going back to my Amazon story, the last mile. Customers now expect to get their orders delivered to the doorstep almost immediately, which is very hard and very expensive. You have to be up there with Amazon, owning the rails to pull it off. Or you can start locally. Bauhaus in Sweden launched their home delivery service over 2 years ago, one city at a time. It was popular out of the gates, but especially for big and bulky products. But over the last year, they've seen an incredibly extra growth. Of course, the message on the truck says order before 11 a.m. We'll bring it to your doorstep the day after. It's very basic, very clear, very hard to pull off, yet exactly what more and more customers expect. The last example here, speaking of digital only, with no physical alternative, the hurdles can become extra apparent, like size and fit, even beyond shoes and clothes. Take Elon here. They are the Nordic leader in the home appliances and electronics market with over 400 stores and a very successful e-commerce operation. They sell fridges, among other things. And this is a good example of how a digital-only feature like augmented reality, AR, can help answer a basic question like, will this fit my house? When you're on the site looking for a new fridge, you open the product detail page. On a phone that supports AR, you can just tap the AR button and point your phone to the corner and voila, here's your new fridge. It is a perfect fit. Now, pre-pandemic, this was considered a cool and fun feature, almost a gimmick, and just a few products had it. Now, as many customers might not have their store to visit, even if they wanted to, and digital adoption has jumped 10 years forward, augmented reality is totally expected. It's a must-have feature. Before, as you browsed through the different features, the AR button came across as a rare feature. Now, it's the opposite. In a post-pandemic world, as you scroll through the product pages, you're surprised that some products don't have it. And I think this is a pretty good example of what has changed and how important it can be to keep up with trends and new technologies. All of a sudden, digital is reality. And that's it. 3 areas of change and some updates in the chapters of the Vaimo playbook. Thanks for listening, and don't hesitate to reach out to me or any of my Vaimo colleagues to keep the conversation going.